तो अब है ये चौथा पार्ट है GS2 यूनिट 2 सब यूनिट 1। ठीक है जी। तो इंस्टीट्यूशनल फ्रेमवर्क पॉलिसीज़ एंड इंटरवेंशन फॉर डेवलपमेंट इन वेरियस सेक्शंस इन इंडिया। तो ये हमने जो है करंट अफेयर्स से और रिसेंट डेवलपमेंट जो है लास्ट ईयर के उससे अपडेट करना है इसको। और जस्ट अ मोमेंट। और हम जो डिस्कस करेंगे इस वाले सेक्शन में वो हम बात करेंगे 58th टॉपिक जो है गवर्नेंस, गुड गवर्नेंस। ठीक है। सिटीजन चार्टर, इफेक्टिव पब्लिक सर्विस डिलीवरी, ट्रांसपेरेंसी, अकाउंटेबिलिटी, एथिक्स इन गवर्नेंस, ये क्या क्या होता है। तो ये कुछ एक पार्ट जो है इसका हम जो है वो GS1 में भी कवर कर चुके हैं ऑलरेडी। तो लेट्स टेक अ लुक गुड गवर्नेंस। तो डेफिनेशन सबसे पहले, तो गवर्नेंस एक प्रोसेस है डिसीजन मेकिंग की, और प्रोसेस है जिसमें डिसीजन जो है इम्प्लीमेंटेड किए जाते हैं या इम्प्लीमेंट नहीं किया जा सकता है। तो गवर्नमेंट कैन बी यूज्ड इन सेवरल कंटेक्स्ट सच एज कॉर्पोरेट गवर्नेंस, इंटरनेशनल गवर्नेंस, नेशनल गवर्नेंस एंड लोकल गवर्नेंस। तो गवर्नेंस जो है वो सेवरल कंटेक्स्ट में यूज़ हो सकती है। कॉर्पोरेट गवर्नेंस अलग है, इंटरनेशनल गवर्नेंस अलग है, नेशनल गवर्नेंस, लोकल गवर्नेंस अलग है। इन द 1992 रिपोर्ट इंटाइटल्ड गवर्नेंस एंड डेवलपमेंट, तो 1992 की रिपोर्ट है गवर्नेंस एंड डेवलपमेंट की, जिसमें द वर्ल्ड बैंक सेट आउट इट्स डेफिनेशन ऑफ गुड गवर्नेंस, जिसमें वर्ल्ड बैंक जो है डेफिनेशन देता है गुड गवर्नेंस की। तो ये डेफिनेशन क्या है? द मैनर इन विच पावर इज एक्सरसाइज्ड इन द मैनेजमेंट ऑफ कंट्रीज इकोनॉमिक एंड सोशल रिसोर्सेज फॉर डेवलपमेंट। तो गुड गवर्नेंस इज the manner in which power is exercised in the management of countries and countries economic and social resources for development. Good governance has 8 major characteristics. It is participatory, consensus oriented, accountable, transparent, responsive, effective and efficient, equitable, inclusive and follow the rule of law. It assures that corruption is minimized and the views of minorities are taken into account, and that the voices of most vulnerable in the society are heard in decision making. It is also responsive to the present and future needs of society. 8 principles of good governance by United Nations. तो United Nations ने 8 प्रिंसिपल्स दिए हैं गुड गवर्नेंस के। तो सबसे पहला जो है पार्टिसिपेशन, पीपल शुड बी एबल टू voice their own opinions through legitimate immediate organizations or representatives. This includes men and women, vulnerable sections of society, backward classes, minorities, etc. Participation also implies freedom of association and expression. Rule of law, legal framework should be enforced impartially, especially on human rights laws. Without rule of law, politics will follow the principle of matasya nyaya, that is law of fish, which means the strong will prevail over the weak. ठीक है। consensus oriented decision making ensures that even if everyone does not achieve what they want to through fullness, a common minimum can be achieved by everyone, which will not be detrimental to anyone. It mediates differing interests to meet the broad consensus on the best interests of community. Equity and inclusiveness, good governance assures an equitable society. People should have opportunities to improve or maintain their well-being. Effectiveness and efficiency, process and institutions should be able to produce results that meet the needs of their community. Resources of the community should be used effectively for the maximum output. Accountability, good governance aims towards betterment of people, and this cannot take place without the government being accountable to the people. Government institutions, private sectors and civil society organizations should be held accountable to the public and institutional stakeholders. Transparency, information should be accessible to the public and should be understandable and monitored. It also means free media and access to information to them. Responsiveness, institutions and processes should serve all stakeholders in a reasonable period of time. References of good governance. Bhagavad Gita provides numerous cues for good governance, leadership, dutifulness, and self-realization, which are reinterpreted in the modern context. In Kautilya's Arthashastra, 2nd-3rd century BC, the welfare of people was considered paramount, in the role of King Mahatma Gandhi emphasized Suraj, which essentially means Suraj. Suraj, which essentially means good governance. Importance of governance is clearly inscribed in Indian Constitution, which is built on premise of sovereign, socialist, secular and democratic republic committing itself to democracy. तो ये बहुत important है quote करना. Importance of governance is clearly inscribed in Indian Constitution, which is built on premise of. तो Indian Constitution is built on the premise of sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic committing itself to democracy, rule of law, and welfare of people. Under Sustainable Development Goals, Goal 16 can be considered to be directly linked as it is dedicated to improvement in governance, inclusion, participation, rights, and security. According to former United Nations Secretary General Kofi Annan, good governance is ensuring respect for human rights and the rule of law, strengthening democracy, promoting transparency and capacity in public administration. He also said that good governance is perhaps the single most important factor in eradicating poverty and promoting development. Initiative for good governance in India. तो क्या क्या इनिशिएटिव इंडिया में लिया गया गुड गवर्नेंस को प्रमोट करने के लिए? सबसे पहले तो राइट टू इन्फॉर्मेशन एज अ पार्टी टू इंटरनेशनल कोवेनेंट ऑन सिविल एंड पॉलिटिकल राइट्स. इंडिया इज अंडर इंटरनेशनल ऑब्लिगेशन टू इफेक्टिवली गारंटी citizens the right to information as per our Article 19 of ICCPR. ICCPR क्या है? International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. RT Act 2005 marks a significant shift in Indian democracy. It gives greater access to the citizen to the information, which in turn improves the responsiveness of the government to community needs. The right to information promotes openness, transparency, accountability in administration by making the governance more open to public scrutiny. E-governance, the National E-Governance Plan envisions to make all government services accessible to common man in his locality through common service delivery outlets and ensure efficiency, transparency, reliability of such services at affordable cost. E-governance, effective delivery, better programming and services in the era of newly emerging information and communication technologies, which herald new opportunities for rapid social and economic transformation worldwide. E-governance has a direct impact on its citizens who derive benefits through direct transactions with the services offered by the government. Programs launched under e-governance: proactive governance and timely implementation. Pragati, Digital India Program MCA 21, to improve the speed and certainty in the delivery of the services of Ministry of Company Affairs, Passport Seva Kendra, online income tax, etc. Focus on minimum government, maximum governance. Legal reforms. The central government has scrapped nearly 1500 obsolete rules and laws with an aim to bring about transparency and improve efficiency. Reform criminal justice and procedural laws with focus on pre-institution mediation. Ease of doing business. Steps were taken by government to improve business conditions, including legislation meant to improve the country's business environment and policy ecosystems, such as bankruptcy code, goods and services tax, GST, and anti-money laundering act law. Government has launched the Make in India initiative. Decentralization. Centralized Planning Commission was abolished, replacing it with the think tank called National Institution for Transforming India, Niti Aayog, which would usher in era of cooperative federalism. तो इसमें हम बॉटम अप अप्रोच की भी बात कर सकते हैं जब नीति आयोग की बात करेंगे. 14th फाइनेंस कमीशन increase the tax devolution of divisible pool of states from 32 to 42% per year 2015 to 2020. It provides more freedom to states to initiate schemes based on local factors. Police reform, modernizing police forces and implementing the Model Police Act 2015. Reform of the first information report lodging mechanism, including introducing filling e-FIRs for minor offences. Launch a common nationwide emergency number to attend to emergency security needs of citizens. Aspirational district program was launched in January 2018 to transform the lives of people in the underdeveloped areas of the country in a time-bound manner. Anchored in Niti Aayog, the program is aimed at transforming 115 most backward districts with focused intervention in the field of health and nutrition, education, agriculture and water management, financial inclusion and skill development. Good Governance Index. The Good Governance Index was launched on the occasion of Good Governance Day, 25 December 2019. The Good Governance Index is a uniform tool across state to assess the status of governance and impact of various interventions taken up by the state government and union territories. The objective of Good Governance Index are to provide quantifiable data to compare the state of governance in all states and union territories, enable states and union territories to formulate and implement suitable strategies for improving governance and shift to result-oriented approaches and administration. Challenges to good governance. क्या challenges है good governance को? Criminalization of politics. According to Association of Democratic Reforms, 43% of members of Parliament of Lok Sabha 2019 are facing criminal charges. तो 43% members जो है लोक सभा के 2019 में criminal charges face कर रहे हैं. 26% increase as compared to 2014. The criminalization of politics process and the unholy nexus between politicians, civil servants, and business houses are having a painful influence on public policy formulation and governance. The political class as such is losing respect. Therefore, it is necessary to amend Section 8 of the Representation of the People's Act 1951 to disqualify person against whom the criminal charges that relate to grave and heinous offences and corruption are pending. Corruption is a major obstacle in improving the quality of governance. While human greed is obviously a driver of corruption, it is structural incentives and poor enforcement systems to punish the corrupt that have contributed to the rising curve of graft in India. According to Perception Index 2019, India's ranking has slipped from 78 to 80. Gender disparity. According to Swami Vivekananda, it is impossible to think about the welfare of the world unless the condition of women is improved. It is impossible for a bird to fly on a single wing. One way to assess the state of nation is to study the status of its women. Women comprise almost 50% of the population. It is unfair that they are not adequately represented in the government institutions and other allied sectors. Therefore, in order to ensure good governance, it is essential to ensure the empowerment of women. Growing incidence of violence. Resorting to illegal force is considered to be law and order problem, but when one looks at it from a point of view of principles of good governance, it becomes clear that peace and order is the first step to development. Delay in justice. The citizen has the right to avail timely justice, but there are several factors because of that a common man doesn't get timely justice. Centralization of administrative system. Governments at lower levels can only function efficiently if they are empowered to do so. This is particularly relevant for the Panchayati Raj institutions, which currently suffer from inadequate devolution of funds as well as functionaries to carry out the functions constitutionally assigned to them. Marginalization of socially and economically backward people. The socially and economically backward sections of society have always been marginalized in the process of development. Although there are constitutional provisions for their upliftment, but in practice they are lagging behind in so many areas like education, economic well-being, etc. Conclusion. The effective functioning of governance is the prime concern of every citizen of the country. The citizens are ready to pay the price for good services offered by the state, but what is required is a transparent, accountable, and intelligible governance system absolutely free from bias and prejudices. There is a need to reformulate our national strategy to accord primacy to Gandhian principles of Antyodaya to restore good governance in the country. India should also focus on developing probity in governance, which will make the governance more ethical. The government should continue to work on the ideals of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, and Sabka Vishwas, which will lead to inclusive and sustainable development. Probity in governance. Probity is a quality of having strong moral principles. It includes having integrity, uprightness, and honesty. It is not just being incorruptible and honest, but also includes strict adherence to a code of ethics. For an effective system of governance and for socio-economic development, probity is essential. Philosophical basis of governance and probity. The ethical concern of governance has been given in both Eastern and Western literature like Bhagavad Gita, Arthashastra by Confucius, Plato, Mill, etc. Administrators are the guardians of administrative state, so they should honor public trust. Max Weber, he said that irrationality that members of administrative staff should not own means of production. Objective of probity in governance: to ensure accountability in governance, maintain integrity in public services, ensure compliance with the process, preserve public confidence in government process, avoid the potential for misconduct, fraud, and corruption. Citizen Charter. What are citizen charters? तो सबसे पहले इंट्रोड्यूस हुए थे ये 1990s में और इन्होंने रिप्रेजेंट किया था लैंडमार्क शिफ्ट डिलीवरी ऑफ पब्लिक सर्विसेज में. एम्फसाइज ऑन सिटीजंस एज कस्टमर्स बाय ensuring that public services are responsive to the citizens they serve. Basically, a set of commitments made by organization regarding the standard of service which it delivers. तो set of commitments थी ये organization के द्वारा दी गई regarding standard of service which it delivers. It compromises of the vision and mission statement of the organization, stating the outcomes desired and the broad strategy to achieve these goals and outcomes. Clearly states what subjects it deals with and service areas is broadly covers the right of citizens for time-bound delivery of goods and services and redressal of their grievances. Bill 2011 seeks to create a mechanism to ensure timely delivery of goods and services to citizens. It requires every public authority to publish a CC within 6 months of the commencement of the Act and levies a penalty of up to 50,000 for failure to render services. Principles of service delivery quality. Improving the quality of services choice for the user wherever possible, standards specifying what to expect within a time frame, value for the taxpayer's money, accountability of the service provider, transparency in rules, procedures, schemes, and grievance redressal, participative consult and involve. Shortcomings of citizen charter in India. Devoid of participative mechanism in a majority of cases, not formulated through a consultative process with cutting edge staff who will finally implement it. Poor design and content, lack of meaningful and succinct citizen charter, absence of critical information that end users need to hold agencies accountable. Lack of public awareness. Only a small percentage of end users are aware of commitments made in the CC, since effective efforts of communicating and educating the public about the standards of delivery promise have not been undertaken. Charters are rarely updated, making it one-time exercise frozen in time. End users. Civil society organizations and NGOs are not consulted when CCs are drafted, since a CC's primary purpose is to make public service delivery more citizen-centric. Consultations with stakeholders is a must. Measurable standards of delivery are rarely defined, making it difficult to assess whether the desired level of services has been achieved or not. Little interest shown by the organizations in adhering to CC, since there is no citizen-friendly mechanism to compensate the citizen if the organization defaults. Tendency to have a uniform CC. For all offices under the parent organization, CC have still not been adopted by ministries, departments. This overlooks local issues. Reforming CC to make them effective. One size does not fit all. Formation of CC should be decentralized activity with a head office providing only broad guidelines. Wide consultation process. CC be formulated after extended consultation with the organization, followed by the meaningful dialogue with the civil society. Firm commitments to be made. CC must be precise and make firm commitments of service delivery standards to the citizen consumers in quantifiable terms wherever possible. Redressal mechanism in case of default. Clearly lay down the relief which the organization is bound to provide if it has defaulted on promised standards of delivery. Periodic evolution of CC, preferably through an external agency. Hold officers accountable for results. Fix specific responsibility in case where there is a default in adhering to CC. Include civil society in the process to assist in improvement in the contents of charter, its adherence as well as educating the citizens about the importance of this vital mechanism. Way forward. Citizen charter cannot be an end in itself. It is rather a means to an end, a tool to ensure that citizen is always at heart of any service delivery mechanism. Drawing from best practice models such as Sevottam model, a service delivery excellence model can help CC in becoming more citizen centric. Effective public service delivery approach. Introduce a briefly explaining the meaning of service delivery. Divide the body of answer in two parts. You may first describe internal checks such as citizen charter, Sevottam model, etc., while in the second part of the role of judiciary, media, social audits can be stated as external checks. And list the challenges pertaining to public service delivery. Conclude your answer suitably. तो ये गाइडलाइन है कि हम कैसे इसको जो है अटेम्प्ट कर सकते हैं. इंट्रोडक्शन. Service delivery in public administration involves engagement of civil servants with citizens, residents, or any such stakeholder as service provider. Quality service delivery ensures the commitment of public organizations or public service provider to provide quality, high standard services, including mechanisms for grievance redressal body. There is an imperative need to improve the service delivery mechanism in our country. To achieve this, both internal and external appraisal is needed to reform and evolve the existing system. Internal appraisal. Internal appraisal means to evaluate public organizations' own capacities to manage service delivery efficiently. For this, certain standard principles of service delivery can be: quality, improving service quality, choice for citizen where possible, standards specifically mentioned what to expect within a time frame, value for the taxpayers' money, accountability at the level of individual and the organization, transparency in rules, processes, schemes, grievance redressal, participative consult and involve. ये हमने पहले भी पढ़ा है सिटीजन चार्टर इन इंडिया, तो ये भी हमने पढ़ा हुआ है जस्ट अभी. तो इसको चलो एक बार गो थ्रू कर लेते हैं दोबारा. फॉर एग्जांपल द सेवोत्तम मॉडल वर प्रपोज्ड बाय सेकंड एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव रिफॉर्म कमीशन. फॉर इम्प्रूविंग पब्लिक सर्विस डिलीवरी। तो इसे उत्तम मॉडल किसने सजेस्ट किया था? सेकंड रिफॉर्म कमीशन। इट इज़ नाउ रिगार्डेड एज द स्टैंडर्ड मॉडल फॉर प्रोवाइडिंग सर्विसेज मेकिंग governance more citizen centric. The model endeavors to rectify the drawbacks in early mechanisms of public service delivery like citizen charters, and is gradually adopted by various departments under the central and state government. External appraisal. It involves evaluation, feedback, and reporting on the performance of public organization in service delivery. Its sources can be other branches of government like members of central and state legislature or lectures or different levels of court in the judiciary, the media, and the civil society. For example, reporting of crimes by media is an important source of revision for the performance of police organization. Social audit fixes accountability of public servant, increases efficacy and effectiveness of service delivery in local development programs. Challenges pertaining to public service delivery: policy paralysis, delays in action, and inability to take policy decisions by the government or its various departments and agencies is one of the main causes of delay in service delivery. Bureaucratic attitude, sometimes despotic attitude and obstructionist attitude of officials, especially in higher echelons of bureaucracy, acts as hindrance in carrying out public service effectively. Inadequate political will, like recently due to inefficiency and underutilization of funds, the member of parliament local area development scheme (MP-LADS) has been suspended for 2 financial years. Red tapeism due to over-regulation and practice of requiring excessive paperwork and tedious procedures before official action hinders implementation of schemes and projects. Thereby, it affects process of effective public fund utilization. Lack of public participation. With the high level of illiteracy and ignorance about government policies and schemes, many citizens could not demand their rightful services from the government. Conclusion: quality service delivery is an important component of good governance. It requires a number of reforms such as efficient utilization of public funds, decentralization of power, plugging legislative loopholes, strengthening the public institutions like CVC and RTI, enhancing administrative accountability, and making society more democratic. These reforms could improve public service delivery more efficiently in the long run. Transparency in administration. The administration has a vital bearing on a country and its people. In ancient India, right from Vedic days, it has been the avowed objective of administration to be responsive, transparent, accountable, and citizen friendly. These factors could be regarded as the touchstone of any administrative setup. Transparency and accountability in administration are a sine qua non of participatory democracy. Government secrecy fosters disbelief of government on the part of citizens, and transparency eliminates the well of secrecy built against the common people by those holding power. Accountability goes beyond the mere responsibility of delivery of task or service. Transparency in public administration. Background: the administration of Kautilya during the Mauryan period was more or less centralized with an effective system of intelligence gathering. During the Mughal period, the concept of centralized administration continued with great vigor. Accountability and transparency in this centralized administration were conspicuous by their absence. Then came the colonial administration of British. Here again the basic format was of the centralized administration. There was a vertically controlled administrative setup with a district magistrate and collector as the key figure. The collector in the eyes of people was Mai Bap, whose job was to maintain law and order and collect revenue. While the administration was efficient, it had hardly any room for being responsive, accountable, and transparent. It was not responsive and not citizen friendly. These concepts, however, underwent a sea change in later years with token participation of people at various levels. Many administrative innovations were no doubt brought about in various fields like social, economic, and technological, but these were mere cosmetic changes and primarily intended to suit the colonial requirements. Need of transparency in public administration. Transparency is required to make the system of public service delivery effective. However, sheer knowledge of what entitlements are and who is responsible for fulfilling them is not sufficient to ensure that the public services are possibly and effectively delivered to the intended recipient. The primary concern of citizens is in a good civil society is that their government must be fair and good. For a government to be good, it is essential that its services and subsystems of governments are efficient, economic, ethical, and equitable. In addition, the governing process must also be just, reasonable, fair, and citizen friendly. For these and other qualities of good governance, the administrative system must also be accountable and responsive. Besides promoting transparency and people's participation. Transparency makes sure that people know exactly what is going on and what is the rationale of the decision taken by the government or its functionaries at different levels. Accountability makes sure that for every action and inaction in government and its consequences, there is a civil servant responsible and accountable to the government, the society, and the people. Significance of transparency in public administration. Transparency is broadly accepted as a major principle of good governance. Good governance implies accountability to citizens of a democratic polity and their involvement in decision making, implementation, and evaluation of projects, programs, and public policies. The test of good governance lies in the goal and objective of the government, in its policies and programs, in the manner of their execution and the result achieved, and above all, in general perception of the people about the quality of functioning of various agencies, their attitude and behavior towards the people, their sincerity, honesty, and their commitment towards the public duties. In this perspective, transparency and accountability become invaluable components of good governance as well as good administration. Transparency allows stakeholders to collect information that may be critical to uncovering abuses and defending their interests. Likewise, transparency increases the accountability of government officials. Transparency means that the criteria, process, and systems of decision making are openly known to all in a public manner. Citizen Charter becomes an important measure of transparency in institutional setup. The Declaration of Right to Information Act set the stage of transparency in the functioning of government and its various agencies. Under this act, access to information from a public agency has become a statutory right of every citizen. Major initiatives to enhance transparency in public administration in India. Some of the initiatives taken by Indian public administration to ensure transparency working include Right to Information Act, Public Services Bill, Citizen Charters, E-Governance, E-Bhumi, E-Chopal, E-Procurement. ठीक है जी, तो हमने सारा जो है ना पहले भी पढ़ा है. राइट टू इन्फॉर्मेशन और सिटीजन चार्टर तो अभी हमने रिसेंटली पढ़ा है. लोकपाल लोकायुक्त वाला पॉइंट एक बार पढ़ लेते हैं हम. लोकपाल लोकायुक्त एम्स एट रिड्यूसिंग करप्शन बाय सेटिंग अप अ सेपरेट इंस्टीट्यूशन ऑफ लोकपाल एंड सेंट्रल लेवल लोकायुक्त at state level. These organizations investigate cases of corruption against public servants in the respective government organizations. Candidates can check out further information. E-governance initiatives for providing an accountable administrative include a framework for efficient handling of public grievances through the centralized public grievances redress and monitoring system, which is already in place. Hindrances in transparency in public administration. The governments involving transparency and accountability suffers from the weakness that disclosed information genuineness can also be dubious, and wrong interpretation of available information can give detrimental result to an organization. Further, the abundance and availability of information mean that the user needs the skill to determine what it is that they want. The user of information has a major role to play in effective information sharing. Change in the mindset of government employees is necessary as it becomes a great hindrance in the process of ensuring transparency and accountability in the governance structures in India. Limited digitalization of government offices and inadequate infrastructure has further been stumbling block in ensuring effective transparency and accountability measures. Way forward with transparency in public administration. There is an imperative need to strengthen and widen the national public information infrastructure through developing information networks for wider access of digital information through wider use of information technologies. Changing the mindset of government employees is important. This will be addressed to organizing programs for orientation, training, and capacity building. States may be advised to establish an independent public grievance redressal authority to deal with complaints of delay, harassment, and corruption. ठीक है, इसके बाद मिशन कार्रवाई के लिए नेक्स्ट वीडियो बनाएंगे हम. तो नेक्स्ट है मिशन कर्मयोगी. द नेशनल प्रोग्राम फॉर सिविल सर्विसेज कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग मिशन कर्मयोगी हैज़ बीन लॉन्च्ड विद द ऑब्जेक्टिव ऑफ एनहांसिंग गवर्नेंस थ्रू सिविल सर्विसेज कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग. मिशन कर्मयोगी विल हैव द फॉलोइंग 6 पिलर्स. तो 6 पिलर होंगे मिशन कर्मयोगी के. पॉलिसी फ्रेमवर्क, इंस्टीट्यूशनल फ्रेमवर्क, कॉम्पिटेंसी फ्रेमवर्क, डिजिटल लर्निंग फ्रेमवर्क. इलेक्ट्रॉनिक ह्यूमन रिसोर्स मैनेजमेंट सिस्टम मॉनिटरिंग एंड एवोल्यूशन framework. ठीक है जी. For implementation monitoring of program following institutional framework has been approved. Prime Minister's Public Human Resource Council, a council under the chairmanship of Honorable Prime Minister, is conceived to be a apex body for driving and providing strategic direction to civil service reforms and capacity building. Cabinet Secretariat Coordination Unit, it will monitor the implementation of NPCSB, SCB, align stakeholders and provide mechanism for overseeing capacity building plans. Capacity Building Commission, it will be set up for functional supervision of training institutions and facilitate in preparation of annual capacity building plans. Special Purpose Vehicle. Under Section 8 of the Companies Act 2013, it will own and operate all the digital assets created for NPCSC. On behalf of Government of India Program Management Unit, it will provide program management and support services to the department. The training of civil servants at various academies will be restructured to include optimum use of digital learning platform of iGOT. This information was given by the Union Minister of State Development of North Eastern Region. ठीक है जी. Accountability and ethics and governance in India. Accountability and ethics. Ethics and accountability are important elements for modern government. As in majority of the countries, there is a severe crisis of legitimacy. Progressively, it has been realized that the performance management alone will not resolve this crisis period. Inhabitants also expect from politicians and public servants ethical, responsible behavior, devolution, and decentralization. Processes have enhanced the responsibility of public officers. The increase of transparency and openness and the service orientation of public organizations have challenged the traditional values of discretion and equality before the rule. The increasing interaction between the public and private sector have raised the demand of integrity. With these developments, it is vital to appraise the ethical system, or reversibly the traditional values of public service can question some actual evolutions in government. As a fact of governance, it has been central to debates related to problems in the public sector, non-profit and private and individual contexts. Broadly speaking, accountability exists when there is a relationship where an individual or body and the performance of tasks or functions by that individual or body are subject to another's oversight, direction, or request that they provide information or justification for their actions. In the arena of ethics, accountability is answerability, enforcement, blameworthiness, liability, and expectation of account giving. Answerability is elucidated as the obligation of the government, its agencies, and public officials to provide information about their decisions and actions and to justify them to the public and those institutions of accountability tasked with providing oversight. Enforcement proposes that the public or the institution responsible for accountability can sanction the offering party or remedy the breaching behavior. As such, different institutions of accountability might be responsible for either or both of these stages. It can be contended that accountability is the fundamental requirement for preventing the abuse of power and for ensuring that power is directed towards the achievement of efficiency, effectiveness, responsiveness, and transparency. Open, transparent, and accountable government is an imperative prerequisite for community-oriented public service delivery, because without it, covert, unethical behavior will result. In theoretical studies, it has been represented that accountability is the process whereby public sector organizations and the individual within them are responsible for their decisions and actions and submit themselves to appropriate external scrutiny. It is best achieved when parties have a sound understanding of those responsibilities and clearly defined roles within the robust management structure. In effect, accountability is an obligation for a responsibility conferred. This responsibility, which encompasses a range of concerns such as values and ethics and effective, efficient implementation of programs, entails a range of processes. In leadership roles, accountability is the acknowledgement and postulation of responsibility of actions, products, decisions, policies, including the administration, governance, and implementation within the scope of the role or employment position, and encompassing the obligation to report, explain, and be answerable for resulting consequences. Accountability is important for good governance, appraising the ongoing effectiveness of public officials or public bodies, ensures that they are performing to their full potential, providing value for money in provision of public services, instilling confidence in the government, and being responsive to the community they are meant to be serving. Types of accountability. The notion of accountability can be classified according to the types of accountability exercised and or the person, group or institution the public official answers to. Horizontal versus vertical accountability. The predominant interpretation is that institutions of accountability such as parliament and judiciary provide horizontal accountability or the capacity of network of relatively autonomous powers that can call into question and eventually punish improper ways of discharging the responsibilities of a given official. It can be put in another way that horizontal accountability is the capacity of state institutions to check abuses by other public agencies and branches of government, or the requirement for agencies to report sideways, whereas vertical accountability is the means through which residents, mass media, and civil society seek to enforce standards of good governance on officials. While parliament is typically considered as a key situation in constructs of horizontal accountability, it is also important in vertical accountability. Citizens and civil society groups can look for the support of elected representatives to redress grievances and intervene in the case of inappropriate or inadequate action by government. Additionally, through the use of public hearings, committee investigations, and public petitioning, Parliament can provide a vehicle for public voice and means through which citizens and civic groups can question government and seek partiality sanctioning where suitable. Political versus legal accountability. Parliament and judiciary act as horizontal constitutional checks on the power of executive. तो पार्लियामेंट और जुडिशरी जो है वो हॉरिजॉन्टल कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल चेक्स परफॉर्म करती है power of executives के ऊपर. The role of these two institutions can be further described in the way Parliament holds the executive politically accountable, whilst the judiciary holds the executive legally accountable. Parliament is a political institution, while the judiciary can only adjudicate on the legal issues. Together, they provide continuing oversight in order to keep the government accountable throughout its term in office. They may also be aided by other institutions such as Supreme Audit Institutions, Anti-Corruption Commissions, regulatory offices, and human rights institutes. These secondary autonomous institutions of accountability are typically designed to be independent of the executive. In the case of Supreme Audit Institutions, Anti-Corruption Commissions, and regulatory offices, they often report to Parliament, while in the cases of Supreme Audit Institutions and human rights institutes, they may be part of the judiciary. Political accountability usually establishes itself in the concept of individual ministerial responsibility, which is the basis of notion of responsible government. Social accountability is an approach towards building accountability that relies on public engagement, namely a situation whereby ordinary citizen and or civil society organizations partake directly or indirectly in exacting accountability. Such accountability is termed as society driven horizontal accountability. The term social accountability is a misnomer, since it is not meant to refer to a specific type of accountability but rather to particular approach for exacting accountability. Mechanisms of social accountability can be originated and supported by the state, citizens, or both, but very often they are demand driven and operate from the bottom up. It is generally acknowledged that the social accountability mechanisms are an example of vertical accountability. Nevertheless, some reviewers argue that with respect to the social accountability, a hierarchical relationship is generally lacking between actor and forum, as there are formal obligations to render account. Giving account to various stakeholders occurs basically on voluntary basis with no intervention on the part of principal. Therefore, social accountability would be a form of horizontal accountability. Social accountability initiatives are as varied and different as participatory budgeting, in administrative procedure acts, social audits, and citizen report cards, which all involve citizens in the oversight and control of government. This can be contrasted with government initiatives or entities such as citizen advisory boards, which fulfill public functions. Diagonal accountability. The notion of diagonal accountability is far from settled with Two groups of commentators adopting different definitions. Diagonal accountability involves vertical accountability. Actors, generally speaking, diagonal accountability seeks to engage citizens directly in the working of horizontal accountability institutions. This is an effort to augment the limited effectiveness of civil society watchdog function by breaking the state's monopoly over responsibility for official executive oversight. The main principles of diagonal accountability are: participate in horizontal accountability mechanisms. Community supporters participate in institutions of horizontal accountability rather than creating distinct and separate institutions of diagonal accountability. In this way, agents of vertical accountability seeks to insert themselves more directly into 6 to engage citizen directly in the workings of horizontal accountability. This is an effort to augment the limited effectiveness of watchdog, breaking states' monopoly over. Participate in horizontal accountability mechanisms. Seek to insert themselves more directly into horizontal access. Information flow. Community promoters are given an opportunity to access information about government agencies that would normally be limited to the horizontal access, for instance, internal performance reviews, etc. Furthermore, they have access to the deliberations and reasons why horizontal accountability institutions make the decisions they do. Meanwhile, community advocates for being first hand experience about the performance of the government agency to the accountability process. Compel officials to answer. Community activists co-opt the horizontal accountability institutions authority to compel a government agency to answer questions. Capacity to sanction. Community advocates acquire the authority of the horizontal accountability institutions to enforce the findings or influence elected officials within an organization. The ideologies and practices of ethical accountability has significant aim to improve both the internal standard of individual group conduct as well as external factors such as sustainable economic and ecological strategies. More importantly, ethical accountability plays key role in academic fields such as laboratory experiments and field research. Debates around the practice of ethical accountability on the part of researchers in the social field, whether professional or others, have been thoroughly studied by Norma R.A. Rom in her work on accountability and social research. In administration, civil servants have a special responsibility because they are trusted with the managing resources on behalf of community, delivering services to the community and taking decisions that affect the citizens' life. The civil servants have a pivotal role to ensure continuity and change in administration. However, they are dictated by rules and procedures which are formulated taking their advice into account. It is the rule of law rather than the rule of man that is often blamed for widespread abuse of power and corruption among the government officials. The community, therefore, must be able to trust the integrity of civil service decision making process. Civil executives are expected to uphold high standards of professionalism, responsiveness, and impartiality. Holders of public office are accountable for their decisions and actions to the public and must submit themselves to whatever scrutiny is appropriate to their office. To summarize, accountability is intended to make public officials answerable for their behavior and responsive to the entity from which they derive their authority. Accountability also indicate establishing criteria to measure the performance of public official as well as oversight mechanisms to ensure that standards are met. Ethical governance. Ethics is a vital part of corporate governance, and administration must reflect accountability for their actions on global community scales. Ethical governance in business is more than regulatory compliance. It is not rule based but value based. Human values are ingrained in virtues which being difficult to measure, quantify, and monitor. Principle centered corporate guidelines are encouraged to replace rule based ones. Values are learned from childhood, not taught from various contacts. A person experiences stories and situations. Morals are many a time not explicitly articulated but implicitly conveyed. Ethics should govern corporate governance, every action in the business. A research report by CFO Asia, prepared in collaboration with ACCA, titled Corporate Governance, Business Ethics, and CEO states as follows: it is harder to establish a connection between codified ethics and practical actions than to try compliance or governance or accounting system, but ethics can be reasonably seen as an intangible yet powerful catalyst and supporter of compliance. Put another way, it is not possible to legislate for ethical behavior. For factual ethical governance, the person in the business world involved in any action has to absorb himself a commitment, that is a strong conviction that social good is more important than the individual good. It has to come from within. Whether it is awareness or knowledge, it should create true transformation within for the ethical behavior to happen always on every occasion as a natural instinct. Performance consequence reflecting true ethical governance comes neither from those who do it with I am sacrificing attitude, nor from those who do with I do sacrifice for the world to know attitude. This is the major difference between ethical governance and other forms of governance, including activities of CSR and charities. The regulatory mechanisms can only provide a favorable environment for this to happen. Punitive environment cannot create transformation for ethical governance. It can only guarantee compliance approach. To ensure ethical governance, an organization has to develop effective system to address featuring commercial realities, challenging administrative processes, and difficult technical facts. This would essentially require, among other things, a well designed and structured training mechanism which is different from all other types of corporate or industrial training. Ethical governance offers people array of great opportunity to differentiate from the competition in the market to add value. A corporation which is known to be secure and run on moral principles will be more trusted by customers, shareholders, and investors, and will be more efficacious than those less ethical companies. Briefly, by operating with a social conscience, the ethical leader does not just build confidence and loyalty with the staff but builds goodwill in the market, community, and the society at large. Ethical leadership is not without its challenges. For instance, ethics are often highly personal, nor can ethical management be installed in an organization or corporation overnight. Ethical governance requires habit and it requires proper regulations. Education and communication must be further enhanced. Ethical issues must find and gain support in the workplace and also in the society. And finally, there must be proper motivation and recognitions given for those wishing to follow morals. It is well understood that accountability and ethics are strongly related. Effective accountability assists the accomplishment of ethical standards in the governance systems. Legislative or parliamentary control through questions, debates, and committees provide ample opportunity to the people's representatives to raise, among other things, issues of ethics and morality in governance system. More particularly, the Public Accounts Committee in India, which gives its comments on the report of Controller and Auditor General of India in its reports, raises matters that directly or indirectly relates to ethics and good governance. Reports have indicated that a well-functioning civil service aids to foster good policy making, effective service delivery, accountability, and responsibility in utilizing public resources, which are the features of good governance. Good governance is being used as a comprehensive framework not only for administration and civil service reform, but as a link between civil service reform and all embracing framework for making policy decisions effective within viable system of accountability and citizen participation. It can be summarized that ethics is the base of every business firm. Top managers are undoubtedly the protectors of values of the firm, but individual and corporate values drive behavior. Collective human behavior describes the organizational culture. Ethics should oversee business ethical standards, assist to make it happen. Management control system, including various practices such as management audit, operational audit, and cost audit, can be made more effective if such practices can widen scope beyond a compliance oriented approach. Ethical governance is a continuing focus, starting with the board and extending to all workers. With transparency and unwavering ethics, people will seek to earn the trust of those they partner with, forge lasting service relationships, and strengthen business over the long term. Agla District Administration changing role of Deputy Commissioner.